everybody, including Carrie out there, to the first City of Delaware Sister City Advisory Board meeting of 2019. And it's January 8th, and we're going to start with a roll call.
Okay. Mr. Albin?
Here.
Ms. Horvath? Here. Ms. Means? Ms. Sally Greider?
Here.
Mayor Riggle? Vice Chairwoman Rush?
Here.
Chairman Giebert?
Here. Okay, do we have a motion to excuse Julie and Carolyn?
I'll make a motion to excuse Carolyn and Julie.
Thank you. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Mr. Albin?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you okay with?
Oh, yes.
Ms. Horvath?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Ms. Sally Greider?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Rush?
Yes.
Chairman Giebert?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have before us also the minutes from our last meeting on October the 9th. So it's hard to believe that it's been 3 months since then. But are there any comments about the minutes?
I have one question. As I looked through, and it was mentioned that Carolyn Riggle had 2 more people that asked to be included into the group, into the advisory board. And I would like to know if these people are connected to people in here already, or, for example, the sports group, or where are they coming from? Are these people from total different directions, or do we know a little bit in the background on that?
Well, I mean, Carolyn's not here tonight to comment about this, but I believe they were people who met some of the German people when they were here in October, who expressed an interest in our committee. They were people who kind of were hosting our groups as we were going around town and expressed an interest. But I think that at the moment, there's no provision for more than 7 members of this committee. So I think that the city council would have to increase the number of members to consider them.
Okay.
So it's not an ad hoc process of just inviting more people.
Okay. Okay.
Is that
It's good to know. Yeah.
okay?
That's how the minutes read, is that she was approached by 2 people who would like to join the committee.
Yeah.
We don't have any intentions at this point.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look at everyone's term dates
Yeah.
that are coming up. I don't have that on the top of my head.
Right. I mean, just for perspective, this committee originally had 9 people. It was a couple of years ago that the number was reduced to 7. So there were more people at one point, but it would depend on whether there was a reason to increase the number, I think. Does that make sense?
Well, on the other side, not one of us is all a volunteer basis, and that could also kind of bring a little more discussion into the whole city, write it a little bit and about our work and bring here a little bit more diversity too. So
Right.
It's kind of related, random item 7.
Yeah, we're going to come down to this, and I've got some comments about that. So, all right. Okay, I'd like to welcome
Paula Blosser.
Paula.
Paula is from Arts Council.
Okay,
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
She's here for Sakata.
Okay, for item 5. Okay, are there any public comments before we move on in the agenda here? Okay.
We have not made a motion as of yet.
Oh, to approve the minutes?
Correct.
Oh, sorry.
So
Okay,
let's back up.
let's back up to that.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Great. Elaine, would you like to call the roll, please?
Mr. Albin?
Yes.
Ms. Horvath?
Yes.
Ms. Sally Greider?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Rush?
Yes.
Chairman Giebert?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we jumped prematurely to public comments. It didn't seem like there were any, so let's move on to update on Baumholder. So Elaine, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got?
Well, obviously, you guys met right after we had our last meeting. Since then, we've had some contact back and forth. Just, it's been fun just more catching up how everyone's doing. On the back table is some newspapers and some articles that they sent me. And they also sent a disc with about 400 pictures, so I can play those later, maybe at the end of the meeting if you want to look at them. And I can also send you a link so you can look at them at home. I didn't get a chance to go through all 400 pictures, but it's, if you remember, Bernd had a fancy camera and was taking pictures of everything. So we have some great, I mean, it's great shots. I think we had tremendous feedback from them that they felt extremely welcomed and are looking forward to us visiting them soon again. And I believe you have a trip coming up.
I'm looking forward to that in June. So are there other comments about Baumholder?
I love Baumholder.
They're a wonderful group. We had a lot of fun with them. And I think we just need to start talking about the next steps with what we want to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And just as soon as they left, we as the city entered a pretty busy period of our time with budgets and extra meetings, so we kind of had to take a breath from their visits.
Well, let me make a couple of other comments about Baumholder. When Bernd May was here, we went over to Delaware City Schools because they have a junior ROTC program at Hayes. And it would be great, I think we need to find a practical contact with Baumholder, something that exists outside of this group, you know, and I think that the junior ROTC program, if they could do something with the military post at Baumholder, that might be really great. You know, whether it's kids going over there to do an internship in the summer, I have no idea. So I'd like to explore this some more, and I've kind of talked a little bit about this, but it's not easy, and I'm planning to write, I'm in the process, I should say, of writing an article for the Gazette about what Baumholder could mean for, or what it's meant for me, let's say that, representing the American military overseas and some of the significance that holds for me as a person. Because I think that we need to develop some kind of connection with the Army post there. And there's a lot of veterans here in Ohio. Mm-hmm. To support that, if we could find the right way to connect them, you know, there's a lot of veterans here, and there's a lot of interest in veterans and so forth. So I think this is something to work on here, to find a practical way that groups here can connect with people there outside of our sister city program. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an objective, and we'll pick this up again in 8 really, when we talk about specific cities and what we can do for Baumholder. So let's just pick that up then, okay?
And just to go on what you were saying, an interest to show that just the impact Baumholder has. We had a couple come up from, I believe, somewhere near Cincinnati, whose daughter is stationed in Baumholder and had met their burgomaster when they were over there for to visit their daughter. They had their daughter had won a cook-off, like a recipe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She's stationed there. They had a goodness, I cannot get the words out tonight. I apologize.
Competition?
They had a competition, and well, I'm sorry. I should not be talking tonight because I am not getting the words out correctly. But basically, you had to present your favorite American childhood recipe, and they picked one, and her winnings was she did not know she won until they had brought her family over.
Oh, wow.
So they actually drove here to meet Bernd.
Oh, nice.
And brought him a gift. So that is something not even related to Delaware, but they knew he was coming here, and they made the drive up to see him, and they spent probably a good hour with him, just visiting and sharing their stories and their experiences. So it's a great time.
Good. Yeah, there were some very nice
You might not have
things.
known that had happened because it was very last minute and took some schedule rearranging, but we got it to happen.
Yeah,
I'd also like to add a caveat to what you were saying. It's probably not known, but the ROTC from the high school is also in conjunction with Buckeye Valley too. So that's going to bring more of the city of Delaware together. So that's kind of a nice program.
yes. One of the things that's a little bit awkward, but I don't know is we have an Air Force ROTC program
Correct.
at Hayes, and this is an Army post. So it's not the same branch of the military. But having been in Europe myself, I'm not sure that that's necessarily fatal to being, having some contact.
I think also my son is included. He's now a sergeant in the Army, but he went through the Air Force Junior ROTC through Hayes, and we have several friends that kids have gone into different, so I don't think I think you're correct that that's not a big.
Yeah, I don't think it should make too big a difference. So, okay. Are there any other comments about Baumholder? Okay, well, let's move on then to Sakata. And who would like to lead off on that?
Well,
Elaine would like me to lead off on that.
I
believe.
am, Julie is working with me. I've asked her assistance as we prepared to create the art exchange that is going to happen in the end of November of 2019 into January 2020. We will have about 50 pieces of art sent from Delaware City Schools over there in August, and in August, Sakata will be sending us approximately 50 pieces of art, in which will go to Paula. And so I'd like to introduce Paula. If you want to come up forward here and sit, you can kind of
Yeah, please tell us more about that. That sounds interesting.
Okay. Well, as you know, Delaware City Schools of all ages will be producing artwork, about 50 pieces in exchange. They have a set size that they need to meet proportionally wise so that it will fit their space there and same conversely back to us. We plan to have an exhibit of the artwork at the castle in conjunction with our third grade project. So all of the students from the county that have been invited to come and share will be able to come and see this exhibit, which is ranging from about 500 kids and their teachers. Will come through, see the exhibit, and then discuss the exhibit, and then go off and do two individual projects that are art related in some way. And then of course it's open to the general public and will be so advertised. They have asked that we are going to plan to map pictures and have a backing board on them so that they can be nicely instead of framing costs, because nobody can afford that. But we also have to have so that it is a reversible process so that the items after the exhibit is done can be shipped back to them for in need of exchange, I would say. So what we're looking at is having the proper product to hang and install the artwork and show it properly, as we do with any other exhibit at the castle. And we also have to have it reversible, and we also have to be aware of the shipping cost of said product. So where we left off at the last meeting that I attended to is the possibility of having a sponsor. And also the reason, as you heard, they are planning to do the exchange in August to give us enough time to cut all the mat boards and have them ready to go for the December, January show. So I just brought in rough measurements so you can have an idea. So artwork, this was a long time ago, back in the old age. We used to do artwork with masking tape and on cardboard, which this is a short showing time. But cardboard on the old walls of a 165-year-old building will tend to warp. And we find this out with the high school exhibit that we have every year. And then the pictures tend to fall off the wall. So we are proposing a better product, a Gator foam backing board that's more stiff and supportive and then having a mat board on the piece cut to size. They're all going to be standard sizes. And then it will have a hanging system on the back that we can use in conjunction with our current exhibit hanging system at the castle. So the pricing, though, is what I'm working on currently because the Gator foam board tends to run a bit higher than standard foam core. So with 50 pieces, we're looking roughly at anywhere from $15 to $20 per piece, possibly. And then I am trying to work on seeing if we can get some of the lower cost from a local vendor. So that is current cost if we were to go to a retail space and buy said board with donated matting material. So that is where I am at.
All right, thank you.
As a shipping cost,
Yes, as I know.
we're not sure.
So that is less, with the mat boards are, I believe we're deconstructing them, correct? To ship them back? They wanted them matted, sent back.
The cost I'm worried about right now would be the cost for our artwork to go to them, because the next budget would actually be the next, because that would actually be in 2020, so that can be budgeted.
Because the return is in January. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I have a better idea for that, but.
So pending, as you said,
Mhm.
if the original artwork is shipped less all said product, and so to save on cost by having the ability to dismantle them, by all of us having the same cohesive sizes, that way we could just send the artwork, which would be a lighter weight. But if you were to send something finished back at the end of the exhibit, you're looking at 3 to 4 times the weight and size proportion too. And shipping costs can be quite high, and also insurance value. So,
Yeah, are the schools also encouraged to do a fundraiser on their own, for this project, or?
I'll let Julie talk a little bit more about the school involvement. Although I have not updated you on the fact that I have been in touch with the Dempsey art teacher.
Okay.
So that just kind of happened. So.
So I did reach out to Paul Kraft via email earlier this week, and he said they are very supportive and appreciative of the initiative. He has a meeting with his building principals scheduled for this Thursday. So he's going to talk with them to try to identify how they can best roll this project out to the students. How do we do some of his thoughts were, well, how are we going to do selection? I don't know, Paula, if you've given any thought to that. We'll do a district level selection, and then our group pairs it down to maybe the final 50. He needed to know the timeline because I don't think he read the initial email fully. And then some, having he and I do joint communication so that there's better buy-in and participation from each of the schools. So have we identified any sort of theme?
I think the theme we were thinking of was maybe your view of our hometown.
mm-hmm.
So somehow incorporating a child's view or a student's view of their favorite place in Delaware or their something. And I believe that's where Sakata was going, was their viewpoint of their city.
How many people remember the Russian pictures that we got back 30 years ago?
They're in there.
I have some of them in my
Yes,
house.
some of them are in there. In that little closet.
Yeah, I mean, these are great pictures in a way. So it can be a really nice experience, this type of an art exchange. So
Yes.
And I believe Westerville is also doing something similar, or has within the past year or two here, with a city in Japan too. So, and I believe the Honda Center has something to do with it, so I was going to touch base with one of their administrators here after the holidays to ask them about that.
They made it in Worthington.
And I'm sorry,
Was it Worthington? Because they have a sister city relationship with Japan. The McConnell Center's in Worthington.
that's it. We're
Okay.
Sorry. yes.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yes.
Yeah. They might have some good ideas. Yeah.
And I think, like I said, it's within this time frame, 2 years here, that they are doing it or have done it.
Our initial primary contact with the schools was through Dempsey, as Dempsey runs their annual exchange program. I had reached out, and unfortunately we hit the holidays. And so I had reached out just saying, can you give me an update where we are at? And they were kind of feeling a little bit out of their element. The contact over there, she's not an art teacher, so as of just like myself, I can't draw worth anything. So like I need a little help. That's where Julie's kind of coming in to try to gather some support from the teachers. We know that Hayes had presented interest in it and had asked if they could provide more than just art, but more like digital art or photographs. And Rika at Sakata was really excited about that, to have different types. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be a drawing or a painting. It could be, I just had mentioned we did not want to do something such as like ceramics or anything, which would be really neat, except the cost to ship and things like that would be more difficult. So we wanted to keep it something more
To flat.
exactly. It'll be easier for you not to have a bunch of.
And we will actually be seeing a lot of the high school teachers within next week. And when they do a drop off for the high school show, so I can bring this up with Mr. Scott and Lisa and stuff when I see them. That's a great time.
Is this the kind of activity that a company might like to sponsor or contribute to? Is that not appropriate for this?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we're thinking about that for the Ken Domon photography exhibit, is that the cost of those shows, are significant. And that's where I think we'd reach out to probably the Japanese business community within Central Ohio. But I would think for something like what we're doing with the Arts Castle, clearly, I'm sure there'd be some interest. But I don't know, our expenses aren't that high, are they? It's really just
It'll be the matting and the shipping,
And I would
really,
think
for this.
there might be a local company would say, yeah, we'd be happy to sponsor that, and if it's a few $100s to offset that cost, then they do it. But yeah,
And may I ask, why are we doing this at just the high school level and not including our OWO partners?
We were going to include just all the schools within Delaware City,
Mhm.
so all ages would participate.
because when they first approached us about it, when they were here on the visit, their focus was more on school-aged children.
Got
As opposed to community at large, it was,
The
kids
city
in-
through the eyes of a school child.
Yeah. And that was really the first piece, and maybe it gets built on,
Okay,
but yeah.
just wondering.
That was the basis of the exchange with the Lutnans 30 years ago. It was definitely like 11 and 12-year-old kids.
Okay.
I'm sending art.
Something Julie and I had kind of talked about, maybe it might be harder to get some of the elementary teachers to participate in this. They're obviously have a very set schedule. Their students necessarily can't work on their own, like you might be able to at Dempsey or at Hayes, where the kids, we were thinking even maybe if the schools would take a classroom and do it as a classroom art project, something to that effect, where it's not necessarily we get 100 pieces of art from Schultz Elementary and we have to choose a couple pieces. Maybe just have each school provide, like the elementaries provide something where the classroom works on the picture as a group or something. So just a thought.
Mhm.
What are the dimensions of the,
The dimensions of the artwork itself is supposed to be roughly 14 by 21, I believe is what it's weighing.
is that metric or the King's rule with inches, wasn't it?
That was inches because they had converged.
Yeah, and I thought they had changed it to 15 I have it actually.
We can just.
I can email you the dimensions.
14.43 by 21 by 30 feet.
It's-
Which doesn't,
I think it's 21.33.
that's it.
21.33 and 14.43.
Let me check on those. I will email everybody because there's been some back and forth on the dimensions.
So roughly, that artwork itself would be, this is roughly a 16 by 22. So just to give you an idea, so this would be the actual artwork size, but not, then you have the addition of adding matting. So,
Yeah, that's what the big Russian pictures were.
and that's why we whittled it down to 50 pieces.
So you want the artwork to be that size,
The
16 by
artwork is
22.
roughly going to be with this size.
Yeah, the math, the Russians.
And then, so then you'll have a mat and then you'll have foam on top of that.
Is that correct?
What if that's 16 by
Unless this
22?
was the outside dimension. So we have
The
to clarify.
paper, I think the paper.
Because their paper is the 14.45.
Let me,
Yes.
let me clarify that, and I will send it over to everyone, because Rika had sent me the wrong dimensions at one point and clarified, and I thought that they had moved up a little bit to 15, but close enough.
So, but this would give you an idea, like I said, of the artwork size roughly,
Right.
that is correct.
Right, because you had mentioned it probably go almost to 18 once we matted it.
May I add something about the fundraising piece? Have been many families who have hosted a lot of the students from Sakata, and I could see opening it up where they could sponsor an art piece and have just a little placard, this is sponsored by.
That might be
That
interesting.
I could see a lot of people being involved, or even the small businesses in downtown Delaware or the Chamber of Commerce, get everyone involved.
I think this will fit into our discussion later on here about specific cities and how we kind of move on during the course of the year here.
Okay.
This is a good example of how we can kind of focus on certain cities and certain things. So can we do that? Can we kind of pick that up again when we come to that
No.
point?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So thank you for this. I think we'll be picking this subject up probably at each of our meetings as we go on now in some fashion, just to kind of stay up on top of it and so on.
Absolutely.
So as a point of clarification, we're going to mail this to them in November of this year?
No, August.
We're mailing
Our
them
artwork
August.
needs to be well, I probably will ask you to help me with the packaging, so it doesn't get ruined. So I would like the artwork by the beginning of August, so we can send it to them, and they have time to get their matting process done. We should be expecting our artwork, or the Sakata artwork, to arrive in August also. So that was kind of the agreement.
So in essence, though, school year ends in May, and then they don't kick off again until 17.
Well, but there's summer SAC programs. I mean, I think there's an opportunity to still,
Produce if necessary.
yeah.
But I think the majority of the work perhaps will be done by May. And so we actually need to address it sooner than later because of the summer time span.
Right. Well, they come and visit in November, is that correct?
Well, go ahead.
Roughly.
Usually, yeah, I believe they
The
moved-
student
October,
exchange.
November is the fall.
But the student exchange will
Student-
not be going on when this will be happening.
I was just thinking if it were, send it with let's buy a giant suitcase, and it'd have to be cheaper than trying to ship it.
It wouldn't provide enough time to get the matting process done.
Well, that's why I was asking the questions. It would be awesome if it did.
Right,
That would be convenient.
right. If they came earlier, like in September,
Or if we moved the artist.
we were limited. They are so busy that we had 2 dates to choose from. And when we talked with Sakata, I believe one of them was in October,
Correct.
which then we would have needed the artwork back in May, basically.
And the big thing is also to tie in for the whole county children's to be able to come and see this exhibit.
So December is when they have that program she was mentioning. So they'll have all the students going in. So there'll actually be a lot of
exposure for the Sakata art pieces. Exactly.
More so than, I'm not sure how they're doing their art exhibit over there.
Understood.
I can get more details on that if you're interested. I've just been focusing more to make sure we get art.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So are you going to follow this up then?
Yes,
You're-
I can send an email out and with the numbers, and then again, Julie will be following up with Paul Kraft, so we can get the artwork, make sure everybody's on board.
Yes. I'll follow up.
Okay.
I know there'll be a lot of interest, and if it means we have to advertise, and have people do it throughout, maybe not through the schools, but through us, we'll do what we need to do on our end. But
From my end, same with the schools in school ending in May, that I think a final decision should be made by the beginning of March, just I know how tight the schedules get in April and May with all the state testing and everything else that happens at the schools. I'm on PTO at our school, and I know what it's like. So I would highly suggest that we move faster on it and have a deadline of March 1st of what the goal is and the plan. And then that way we still have time to get sponsors, but to have everything clarified for the school itself of what the program will be and our deadlines would be, I think, a better thing for us to do.
Well, and if you want to have a one-off meeting, that'd be fine.
that'd be great.
Sure.
I would definitely use any help.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it sounds like you and Julie are.
And that
kind
will
of-
include Paula. in
Paula.
the communications.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for coming, Paula.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I
You're welcome
appreciate
to
it.
stay
Thank
if you want. Are there any more comments about Sakata for the moment?
Should we mention the Ken Doman exhibition? This is the photographer who's a native of Sakata, who is renowned in Japan for his work on Japanese life, pre-war, during war, post-war. And there's a museum in his name in Sakata, which we visited when we were there 2 years ago. And the idea that we hatched when we were over there was perhaps partnering with the museum and the city on bringing his work, some of his work, to the States and to Ohio Wesleyan University's Ross Museum. So Aaron Fletcher, the director of the Ross, has been doing some really good legwork in reaching out to the Central Ohio, some of her Central Ohio contacts, in particular the Dublin Art Museum and the Columbus Museum of Art, to gauge their interest in some sort of an exhibition. And she's gotten so far positive feedback about that. We've relayed that to Sakata, our contacts, and initially we were thinking that we could do this in next year, to coincide with the Olympics, which are going to be in Tokyo. But that timeline doesn't work. I didn't realize that art museums work, I mean, they start planning things kind of like academia, they go way out. And so the response that she got back was 21 would make more sense. And now that it's 2019, I tend to agree because it's a lot of work. So we're tentatively looking at sometime in 2021, and that would allow enough time to raise money. This could be upwards of $100,000, given the cost of insurance, shipping, all the logistical challenges. But we think the additional time gives us the ability to work with the community of Central Ohio, Honda, and some others, perhaps for some sponsorships. And so we're kind of working behind the scenes, but the tentative plan would be to do something in 21 It would be an exhibition both at the Ross, at the Dublin Museum, the Dublin
Arts Council.
Arts Council, and the Columbus Museum of Art. 3 different locations, 3 different exhibitions, but all this kind of the same theme. And with Ken Domon's work. So that's moving along. A lot of thanks, Erin, to Erin and the work that she's been doing, this legwork. But it's going to require a heavy lift when it comes to fundraising. That will give us more time to do that. But
Yeah, that's actually a perfect kind of thing for 7 and the discussion about 7 and 8 with point 7 and 8 here about Columbus Sister Cities.
we could take more of that up then. But the upshot is we're still moving along with looking at something that would happen. We're waiting for a response back. We had a letter translated in Japanese that was sent to our contacts at the foundation, the Ken Domon Foundation, letting them know what we're thinking about. But as we're learning and we've known, there's a long lead time in just getting things translated, getting word back on various things. But I think there's a real interest here. So this would be exciting if we were able to do that.
Yeah.
Come on the heels of the Olympics, which are going to be in 20. So anyway, that's just an update on that. And I'll have Elaine. We sent a letter. I sent an email right before the end of the year to a contact I had in the Japanese Local Government Center in New York, which has contacts for various things like this. So I reached out to them, and I spoke to somebody there today who said we should reach out to the Consul General who's in Detroit, who I think we had some contact with Rand at one time, and Japanese Consul General. So hopefully we'll flesh that out. But we'll get the email out to the board members so you're all up to speed on it. But it's moving along.
Okay.
But taking time.
Okay. Thanks for that update, Tom. So, any other comments about Cicada? We're going to move on. I mean, actually, Cicada is actually a perfect example of what we can do, and we're going to discuss here in item 8. So, let's move on here to an update on La Hardane. So who would like to pick that up?
I will.
Okay, thanks.
Rand actually had a little meeting with Julie and myself, as well as Sean Kay, who's working with OWU. We had a very enjoyable evening and just talked all things Ireland and some of the opportunities that he and the contacts that he has that we may be able to get some meet and greets with the students that we take to Ireland. So that was really a fun evening. I've also reached out to Nicole Ross, who is the women's soccer coach, because I felt that the men have a great relationship with Baumholder, and I would like the women to kind of get into that role. And she was excited about it. They are going to I believe, the Caribbean this year for spring break, and they try to do a trip every 4 years. So in 4 years, it looks like they will be going to Ireland and spending part of the time in La Hardane, and we will get some matches for them in Galway. So that will be moving forward. We do have the gymnastics team that has both Buckeye Valley as well as Hayes going in March. Fortunately, that will be the week after St. Patrick's Day. So, well, that might be fortunate too. And then we also have a group going in June from Hayes. So we're moving forward with all kinds of
Is that another sports group?
Well, yeah, it's students and parents.
And how are you organizing that at the school? Well, maybe the better question is, who are you coordinating this with at the school?
It ends up being different teachers. We have been going through Paul Kraft.
Yeah, we always start with Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Still wondering why there's a bit of a pushback on it. I talked to Buckeye Valley and talked to their global studies teacher. They have a trip planned for Ireland, Scotland, and England. And they informed me that we have a global
Scholars
scholar
program.
at Delaware, which I would have thought that Paul would have mentioned that, but he didn't. Yes, we've been trying to work with them and trying to get, it's just been a little bit more cumbersome through Delaware City.
Right.
But Buckeye Valley is open arms. They actually want to, next time that the band goes, because they want to do it every 4 years, they would like to could join with them and get a large band together. And that's kind of a really cool project because those kids intermingle, and this would be a nice project for them to work together. So they're very excited about the opportunity and would like to take the lead, which is fantastic.
Okay. So there's a trip in March and a trip in June that are scheduled now, and they're going on.
Yes.
Are either you and Julie going on one of these trips?
We're both going in June and you are going in March.
Okay. All right. Is there any other thing we should discuss at the moment about this?
I'm still trying to figure out projects to get some of their students here or adults. So I'll be talking with them while we're there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Can we move on to item 7 then? Okay. Okay. So here's the discussion of transition to 501c3 status. So we talked about this at our last meeting and thought we would explore it during this calendar year here to see what was out there and so forth. And I had a meeting, I believe in November, with Tim Sword of Greater Columbus Sister Cities, and he brought up the possibility that we could be like a subsidiary of theirs. In other words, we could be an autonomous group, but be part of their 501c3, which would relieve us of the need to form our own 501c3. So we invited Tim to come tonight to explain or talk about this, but perhaps he wasn't prepared. I mean, I think it's before talking to us, perhaps he would like to talk to his own board. I mean, I think he's already done that to some extent, but maybe talking to us in a public forum needs a bit more preparation, possibly. But I see a lot of good things that could come from something like that. The thing is the Columbus Sister Cities, they have full-time staff there. They're able to, they could support us a lot. And especially this Ken Domon exhibit would be a perfect example of how they could support this and help us in the general Columbus area with a project like this. So that would be an ideal thing for them perhaps to support us with. So I think this discussion of 501c3, we shouldn't neglect checking into other things. We invited Tim to come tonight for a little bit to explain this, but he couldn't make it tonight. Maybe it wasn't, the timing wasn't great, but I think he will come in April and talk to us about this a little bit. And just for your information, Bonnie Quist, who's currently on the board of Greater Columbus Sister Cities, lives here in Delaware. So is she the chairman this year, Tom?
Yes, I think so.
I think she's the chairman. So there's a lot of other good things that could come from contacts we could have with Columbus Sister Cities. I have Rotary contacts. The Heiser family are very involved with both Rotary, my Rotary Youth Exchange program, and Greater Columbus Sister Cities. So this is another completely separate contact that we could build on here in Delaware. So I think it's something to explore. this contact, and I'm hoping that Tim will come April. So does that sound good for the time being here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I think there's a lot of promise in that. Administratively, it would be very simple. I mean, the way Tim said it, explained it, we could be completely autonomous. We could have our own bank accounts. We could have our own board. It would just be that we would kind of be like a subsidiary of them.
We actually use that program with the boosters at Hayes.
Yeah.
All of the sports have their own accounts, but they're under the booster umbrella. So it works very well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I personally like it because I like to work with people, and in fact, we'll probably come to that here in number 8. I think it gives us more resources to work with.
Oh, absolutely.
So, are there any other comments about this for the moment? We haven't done a lot. I mean, I haven't explored other legal kind of mechanisms of forming a 501c3. I guess I like this idea of working with Columbus Sister Cities, and like to hear more about that first in April. Is that a good plan to invite Tim?
Yeah, I know that filing your 501(c)(3) initial paperwork can be very expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you do it incorrectly, then you got to start all over, and usually lawyers are involved.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we were able to leverage a relationship like that, I would say that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Yeah, I've been involved in forming 501c3s in the past, and it's not fun. And I would like to simplify this if we could.
And earlier, we had, a couple of years ago, we had more, because it was a relationship with them too. We did some things with them as well, so that's a good way to get that going again.
Yeah, I think it could be a lot of possibilities. Okay, so let's leave that for the moment here and look. We'll have that on the agenda for April and invite Tim. Okay, so can we move on to item 8 then? This is looking at our own interest in kind of forming a little group to work with our specific sister city programs. And I think we're specifically thinking here about Baumholder, Sakata, and La Hardane to support what we're doing there right now. I think I'd leave Wooten and Scout for the time being, not that we couldn't, but I just think that we have other fish to fry right now, and we'll leave Wooten for another day. So I don't know if you've thought about this, if there's a sister city that you might be particularly interested in working with. I mean, you have a lot of interest in La Hardane and so forth, which is great. So.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to work with Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of came into the group with that interest, so that's helpful. Daryl, have you thought about this at all? I mean, Ohio Wesleyan is an interesting position because you're involved in a way with all of our programs.
Yeah, especially Baumholder, the relationship that started things off.
Mm-hmm.
But then also Sakata, because we do have a relationship with, although not active, we have a relationship with Koike Daidaku, which is the university there, recently founded university in Sakata. So I would be willing to work with either program or be involved, however you need to allot resources. So, and clearly, La Hardane is coming up in the future too. So. I also know, and I work with Aaron on a lot of different things too, Aaron Fletcher. And we have a long-serving instructor in Japanese, Kawabe Sensei, who has been to Sakata, led some of our students there for a short-term program. So whatever support you want, I'd be available.
Have you ever been to Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
So
story.
I was gonna say, there's. a
I've been
story.
in between a dozen and 2 dozen times, so
Okay,
maybe 20.
well, that's a lot.
Yeah, I love Japan.
Yeah, I do too. Rita, do you have a,
Well, coming from Germany, I'm in the German roundtable here. But I'm also open to work with whatever, so whatever needs us.
mm-hmm,
I'm not sure the text.
mm-hmm, okay.
My German, yeah, sure. The connection with the German roundtable to, bringing them together, so big one for us.
Mhm. Well, I guess I have a particular interest in Baumholder. I'm interested in all of our programs and so forth. It's not that, but I probably would, if I had to choose one, just to support what we can do in Baumholder. But what I'd like to encourage us to do, and I'm going to work on this also during the next few months. I've already thought about it quite a bit. Is who in the community can we form a little group to support our sister cities individually? And I was thinking, like, for Sean Kay, I mean, Lauderdale would be he'd be a person to think about for that. I think he's interested in it. His wife's Irish. I mean, that's a kind of support group you could probably build on. And what I'd like to propose here is that during the next 3 months, so by the time we have our meeting in April, could we come with maybe 5 names of people who could be like a group? And you could talk to them casually perhaps about this if you wanted to take some initiative like that to see if they would be interested. I particularly think this would be good because when this committee, the Sister City Advisory Board, started back in 2013, I used to get together every couple months with Andy Brush just to talk about American foreign policy and stuff like that. That was quite fun. I mean, so this group had kind of a slightly sort of fun, practical, personal feel to it because I was doing something outside of our meetings, or outside of working on a specific project, like going to Lauderdale or hosting the Germans, but just something kind of about American foreign policy and so forth like that, which I thought was quite fun and I enjoyed that. So maybe there are people that we could think about who have an interest in our sister cities, the 3, Sakata, Baumholder, Lauderdale for the time being. Let's leave Oman and Scout. So think about people that might be interested in this, bring some names. You can talk to them in the meantime, just casually say, we're thinking about this. Would you be interested in something like that? I think when we met with Sean Kay, I mean, we did sort of kind of talk to him about some interest that I think he would help us if we wanted to. It fits in with this stuff. So that can we think about that for April, to think of specific people who might fit into a group like this. I was really surprised when the German people were here and we had the meeting at Merrick Hall that there were a number of people who were there who had kind of connections to Baumholder. I think one of the professors there, his parents got married there or something like that. I mean, there's stuff like that out there. And those people might be someone who could be like to be on a committee just to focus on that. I think that would help us. And like for Baumholder, I would like to get someone from the veterans groups here who has an interest in Baumholder, would like to be on a committee. And Carolyn can probably help us with that too. Carolyn could probably help us with that. So let's think of some names of people who we can bring to the meeting in April. Is that good? Okay.
Have they invited him already to
No, I think just bring some names here so we can kind of think about how we might organize these groups on, even if we want to kind of make some kind of more, I don't know what we want to do to formalize or informalize these groups, but I think that they could be helpful. as we move forward here. So we would have that on the agenda and hope that Tim Sword can attend here. And maybe Bonnie Quist could join him. Do you think, Tom, we should?
I think you've got enough lead time if that's possible.
We could.
Having Bonnie here, I think, would be helpful because she is a resident.
Yeah.
She's, obviously involved in what Sister City is, you know, their board, but I think it speak to the benefits of some sort of collaboration. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we are getting near 7 o'clock. Are there any member comments? Does anyone have any general comments they'd like to make?
Julie and I have our 5 already.
Okay.
We're overachievers.
Overachievers.
We know people.
Okay. I mean, taking kids overseas is a very,
Great experience.
it is.
One question though, we had with Baumwolle, we had also the idea, but with the school exchange, so that's totally now switched to Ireland. No, there's no more student exchange with Delaware. Then there was a change with the school system or with the
They had a change in their school system.
Yeah, they had a change, and also, I mean, we had a change not recently in Delaware, but they don't have a German program at Hayes anymore. So I think that's kind of a stumbling block a bit to doing this regularly. I mean, it may not have to be, but like they'd rather go to France, for instance, or Spain. But that's why I think the junior ROTC program there, that's got a lot of potential. And when I went there with Bert May and I talked to some of the kids in the junior ROTC program, they go to Baumholder in a heartbeat if we gave them the opportunity. They would go in a heartbeat.
Yep.
So we just have to find the right mechanism for that, kind of, whether it's through the school, through some kind of. I've talked to Paul a little bit about this, Paul Kraft. So, but we haven't kind of taken that a next step there with that. But to me, we have to push on that. And when I was there in September, the general who had been there before, he thought this was a great idea for high school kids to do something with the base, with Army Post there. So it's Mark Kimmett. He thought it was a great idea. And he said he'd support this if we needed kind of military support. So I think it's just a matter to push on that, just to keep going on that. So is everybody ready for our next meeting? It says January 8th here, but it would be April.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I only noticed that. So,
It would be in April, second Tuesday in April.
yeah. So, are there any other comments from people here?
I have a question. You mentioned Buckeye Valley quite a bit with the exchange of the Sister City programs and such. And I'm asking this because I'm a Buckeye Valley mother. So that there's a representative of Buckeye Valley here on an official capacity. So when you were considering this a Sister City, any of the programs and outreaching, do you absorb because of versus Big Walnut with Buckeye Valley because of the ROTC shared program and some of the other programs, and also vice versa? I don't know if Hayes has some of the kids in the ag program at Buckeye Valley, because I know there is one of the gentlemen from Buckeye Valley or the area who has brought in some of the Chinese, has brought them in personally on his own to have them come and visit and explore his farm and such, and heard that at a meeting that I was at on developing of a Buckeye Valley graduate. So my question is, how far does the outreach go with the Sister City programs?
Well, actually, I can say the junior ROTC actually extends to, I believe, all of the Delaware County school districts, because I believe Olentangy is also included in that. But that's a newer concept. I think Rand might be able to talk more about it, but we're kind of new at some of this.
Well, when this advisory board was formed, because it's Delaware City, the focus has been on Delaware City and what's in Delaware City. Now, I think that as we go on, we see that we don't want to be exclusive and not consider things outside of Delaware City. So we're kind of exploring how that works, how to move outside of Delaware City. So at first we were kind of thinking Delaware City, and this advisory board started with an exchange that Delaware Hayes did with a high school in Baltimore. So there has been a very strong Delaware City focus, and we are an advisory board to the Delaware City Council. But I think as we go on, we don't want to exclude other local residents. So I think we're kind of exploring that. So.
Okay. Well, and I have a double tie-in fee with the castle, and then also being
yeah, we don't want to be exclusive. We're just kind of exploring how we go out beyond.
How we can reach out but bring it back in.
Yeah.
Still center around what the city is.
Yes.
I think with what Rand had said, with the support groups that we will have forming soon, it's going to make it easier, because right now I know life is crazy with everyone, and you're spending your free time to be able to reach out, and then when you can't make contacts, it gets kind of difficult and cumbersome. So to have these teams is going to be a huge help. So.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship between Delaware City and Buckeye Valley isn't in a city per se,
Right.
but there's so much integration from youth level sports on up that in crossover programs. You have the DACC and things like that. It's kind of a natural extension. I think we probably know more people in Buckeye Valley versus Big Walnut or even some of the old PNGs. But
There had been discussions in the past, I believe, by Julie Means. I don't want to speak for her since she's not here, but even including St. Mary's
correct.
and
Delaware
Christian, because those are, so we are kind of starting more, Sakata had a program set up through Delaware City Schools with Dempsey. I think it's like 22 years possibly coming up.
I believe I remember that.
I think, so that's sort of where that one grew from through the past relationships, but we're willing to, obviously expand that out if we need to.
Yeah, well, I think we're kind of exploring new things, and I think that's appropriate because Delaware is getting bigger as a city. We need to explore new things. So
We'll take all the help we can get.
okay, is there a motion to
I
adjourn?
have one more question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So what is the idea or the plan with the first Fridays? That was the idea that we had, to be outreaching to the city, that we get more people.
Well, right
involved and
now,
such.
First Fridays are a little bit more difficult, I think, because it's winter. So I think it's something possibly we could discuss coming into our April meeting and see. I don't think it's something we need to do every month. People want to enjoy the events and stuff, but possibly I would for sure think we might want to have something before the arts exchange to promote that, to promote with the Art Castle. So that would probably be a November first Friday or even October. But that's obviously a farther away. We could still meet sometime in the spring if you wanted, but I don't want to do anything in the winter.
Yeah, but on a regular basis.
It was miserable when it rained on us the one day.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, and looking back at our notes too from our prior meeting is that we had talked about when the students are here from Sakana, to have them actually come possibly to the castle and create a piece of artwork. So have a tour of what the castle's about after, when they're done with all the other visitations. And then they can actually create a piece of artwork to take back, which I think was a small ceramic
Yes.
piece that they can actually put in their luggage, not a big 3D piece. So that they had that memory and could share and exchange and show it at their display of our artwork at that point in time. So,
Are you talking about something that would be fired in a kiln and?
yes, that we could send back because they're
Oh,
here for
so-
10 days, I believe it is, or something.
More like 5 days. They spend another 5 days in Washington DC usually.
So it's something that they could create, and we could fire, and that would be a small thing, could be like a small flat ornament or such. And then that could be an easily shipped item to them so that they could have it in time for their own display.
Could we get little horses, little versions of the big horses?
I don't see why we couldn't. We could have easily like cookie cutters too, or something else that is represented.
That way you're tying in the city and
Absolutely.
our little horse fetish we have.
Just a little one. Absolutely, and I can come up with some of those ideas that they could present with them.
So I can provide you with some dates, the themes for First Fridays for Main Street. Whenever you guys want to, as a board, have a table, I can just contact them and
I
set
just
it
think,
up.
yeah, we should have it on a more regularly. As I understand, not
Yeah.
every first Friday, that's okay, but not only once a month, once a year or so,
Right.
just when we have a special project.
Right.
I think we need to be out there on a more regular basis to really get the idea out and to connect more with the people. And we have started out good with a list, and so I'd like to bring that into.
Okay. Thank you, Rita. Any other comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.